Agricultural Affairs, and the new named Associate Director of Extension, Dr. Lynette Plage, will be present to present what our priorities are going into the legislative period that starts in January. So that'll be an opportunity for you guys to hear about that. And the last thing that I know you got invitations to were the community forums that we do every 5 years. And these community forums are to help you guys set what our priority and direction is for the next 5 years. And they try to get a lot of different individuals from all throughout the state. They're hoping for over 2,000 people to voice their opinions, to tell us what the community needs are for the next 5 years. So I thank you, because I know some of you have already registered for that. And so if you need any information on any of that, let me know. Our programming is going fine. We're finished up another virtual cooking school. We're doing some more Zoom powerful tools for caregivers. We're doing some Zoom parenting classes. I think I said this last time, but it still remains the same. We're having better attendance at all of our meetings via Zoom. And I think it's because they're right there and they can do it. They don't have to find babysitters or respite care, or it's more handy for them. And so we continue to have waiting lists. So, I didn't think we'd ever turn to this method, but we did, and it's been successful. And in the future, we're going to have to come up with a hybrid between the two to continue moving forward. So that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Thank you, Rita. Any questions at all? I don't see anybody's hands going up virtually or figuratively or literally. Okay, thank you, Rita. Mr. Prashniak, you're next. What do you think?
Let me hit the mute, and I'll just share. I don't even have to share that document. I'll just send that to Brielle. In anticipation of a lot of things, to include Cass County employees possibly needing some more portable masks, not just the employees, but guests that may enter our facilities. We did a order. I would guess that there's probably going to be quite a demand for those on a regional footprint as far as the U.S. is concerned. And so we were able to get those at a pretty decent cost. So we'll have plenty of those on hand. We already have a stash of cloth ones at our office. So in case we need those in the future, or if anybody's in need of those, they can certainly contact us or Heather, and we'll make sure we get them distributed. Ongoing as far as credentialing and identification process through that Salamander program. You've heard me talk about this on many occasions. We got one of the big fish completed in completing West Fargo fire to include rural fire. So it doesn't sound like something real difficult on the front end until you take into consideration that this ID card actually barcodes the certifications that all of those fire officials have. And so when they respond to an area, if they have the necessary credentialing to work with a certain hazardous material, they can certainly help. The best example I could use that for, those very credentials or ID cards that we use, the firefighters that responded to, was it Oregon? That those credentials would be recognized out in Oregon. They can scan them in, show when they arrived, show what they're capable of, et cetera, et cetera. So it's nationally recognized. That's the beauty of going to this program. We have been spending quite a bit of time, various meetings, planning an active shooter exercise at Fargo City Hall. It's been slated for months, obviously, actually longer than that, for October 29th, which officially got canceled and potentially rescheduled next spring. So stay tuned. And we were taking into considerations, obviously, all of everything that you would want to when it comes to COVID. But with the resurgence coming back, we exercised. Actually, I shouldn't even say that we did. We were informed that we should cancel. One of the things to date that's still going to go on right now is train the trainer for the Armor Radio project. Commission is very familiar with that, and obviously the approval of that from a financial aspect. The radios are going out. Some of the smaller entities, SWAT has received theirs. The next wave of between 400 to 500 radios is going out as soon as we complete Train the Trainer program. Those will be representatives from those organizations that are the go-to people when it comes to everything involved in making the switch. And teaching the users the correct way to use them. The next round will be Fargo Public Works, to include street, water, etc. West Fargo Public Works, Cass County Highway Department. That group of between 400 to 500. After that, then we switch to law enforcement agencies. Some would ask, why wouldn't we do law enforcement first? I don't want to make it sound like one is more important than the other, but we want to make sure that all the bugs are worked out prior to giving them to agencies that depend on them in a potentially life or death matter. So that's why we're going with the public works and those agencies first. Last but not least, when we did the update, as you may or may not recall, for the mitigation plan update, we submitted a grant to get that done through Lake Agassiz Development Group. They shared with me here about a month ago that the in-kind that we needed to provide, which was roughly a little over $13,000, we're just shy of meeting that in-kind to the tune of their last calculation, $696, which there was an agreement signed off by Commission and Fargo, City of Fargo, that it would be split 50-50, so it comes to roughly $300 and some odd dollars. That will ultimately be subtracted from the total grant to cover the expenditures. When I get that formal word and the final amount from state DES, I'll bring it in front of the commission to accept the grant minus the shortfall of the in-kind. So and that's all I have. You see me working at home today. My wife had a little bit of a surgery, so I'm kind of at a beck and call here at times. That's all I have.
Any questions for Jim? I don't think there's anything such as a little surgery, but okay.
This is Robert, and I would just simply say that Jim was really very actively involved in the Alertus planning. So if there are any questions on that, Jim's a good resource if there are questions that anybody has.
All right, thank you. Last call for Mr. Prochniak. If not, Mr. Deere, you're up.
All right, good afternoon. Veteran Services kind of had a little small part in, there's an unclaimed veteran, and we were able to get the DD-214, and we spread the word, and over 200 veterans and citizens went out to the Fargo National Cemetery and gave an unclaimed veteran the service he deserved. So that was kind of a big deal in our book. Mr. Leland Durr, I knew him from previous employment. He was homeless and trying to get some things going again back in his life. And it was just good to see the community come out with full military honors and honor guard and patriot bodies that helped do that. Then Veterans Day, we have a coffee hour coming up. So I put that on our Facebook page. And then today, we had some information that the National Suicide, President Trump signed a bill a new national suicide prevention number, so we're trying to get that information disseminated as well. So it's going to be like a transition to a 988, kind of like 911, but as the VA kind of moved away from mental health, 24-hour mental health ER, this will kind of take its place. Other than that, we're just doing claims. We're waiting on our national archives. A lot of requests are going in, but we're seeing the effects of COVID and waiting on documents and personal treatment records and things like that to build a claim. So things are moving slowly on their end. We're, doing our job. It's just a waiting game right now. So we're all just kind of ready to hit submit once those records come in, or providing the medical nexus on some claims. So just a waiting game too. But if anyone had any questions, that's all I have for today.
Any questions for our VSO? If not, thank you, Mr. Deary. Thanks. Were you the one that orchestrated the funeral arrangements? Was it out of our office or was it VA?
It started with our office, and then with the unclaimed, we actually transferred that up to national. So it went to the regional office, and Nicole Gooder-John put that all together with the help from the funeral home. So definitely a good pat on her back. She put it all together. And like I said, there was about over 200 people there. They got a flag from our office. So little bits and pieces here, but I can't take any or all the credit for that.
So this
No,
is
but you
Commissioner
got
Pollock
it started. Well done. Commissioner Pollock, sorry.
I suspect that this was that the county took care of the expenses for the processing the body in the funeral home and would have done the burial had it not been at the veteran cemetery. Is that correct?
Actually, we don't, Commissioner Pollock, we don't have any funds for that. As the body was unclaimed, it does get, I believe.
Yeah, the county
Yeah.
The county paid
But
for everything until it got out to the national cemetery.
Correct, but no funds come out of this office per se. That's what I thought you were alluding to.
Through social services.
Correct. Yep. And then they can put in a reimbursement as they did pay for some of the costs. So we are aware of that.
Thank you.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thanks again. Mr. Ross, you're up.
I just have one quick question. Sorry, Chad. For Christopher.
Yep. Go ahead.
Do you have any involvement in the Veterans Service Center, I believe, that I've read about that's downtown?
I do. I actually, when I was at the VA, they were talking about it some, 5-6 years ago, and I was there for the ribbon cutting. So I'm fully aware of the operations that go on there and fairly aware with all the good things that are coming downtown, and that definitely helps a lot of our homeless veterans. There's a food bank, showers on hand, medical staff, referrals. A lot of the social workers I worked with before, so we have a really good rapport with them. And we've been doing a lot of referrals back and forth already.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Ross, take over.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I had tried to put something here on files. I don't know if you're able to see that or not.
I can't see a shared screen.
Hmm.
Mr. Wilson, can you give permission?
You're muted, Robert.
I don't know that I've ever had to give permission. If somebody's an active participant in the meeting, I believe they have the toolbar down there that you can open a share tray and share anything. It's that one right next to the mic. If you hover over it, it says open share tray, and then you should be able to share what's on your screen.
So I've got it open right now. I don't know if you're able to see it. Open share tray and anything?
If you want to email it to me, I'll share.
Yeah, I'm back in the office and I don't have very good internet back here, but anyway, I'll move on.
Yeah, as soon as you get it, as soon as I get it, I'll pop it up.
Okay, let me just hop out of here. Okay. Well, we've had some transitions here at the coroner's office. Dr. Baird retired on August 31st of 2020 after serving 37 years as the Cass County coroner. I am currently interim coroner, and we also have Darren Haverland, who is a deputy coroner. We have Tammy Link and Natalie Basta, who are both part-time investigators at this point. And we also have 2 drivers who are driving remains to and from Grand Forks for autopsies. Statistically, in 2020, as of today, we've had 530 cases. In 2019 total, we had 508 cases, and at this time, and 650 total for the year. So we're on track to hit that number as well. In 2020, so far to date, we've had 76 autopsies. For 2019, we had 110 autopsies. Our 76 compared to 2018, we had 97. In 2017, we had 81. To date, we've investigated 11 homicides, 15 suicides, 45 accidents, and 306 natural deaths, as well as 4 undetermined deaths. Looking at our budget, we have been utilizing the library staff services. We spoke with Vital Call several months ago, and as FM Ambulance was just getting too busy to be able to respond to calls for removal. So Dr. Baird talked to a company called Vital Call. They came in $20 under what FM Ambulance was going to charge for removals, and so far it's been working out fairly well. The majority of our removals that we're doing are actually by coroner staff, even though we're not in the business to do library services.
Katie, you froze up, so if you're still talking, we can't hear you.
Christie.
Christy Ross?
Well, I dare say she's offline.
I'd say she's gone. Let's, as she catches up here, Mr. Burdick, you want to take over for Miss Christy Ross, please?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a few things. Our caseloads this year, at least the last numbers I had at the end of September, are up about 8% from last year, which is a significant amount, COVID notwithstanding.
Well, Mr. Burdick, I see Miss Christy Ross back on.
I will stop.
Do you want to keep chugging, Christy, or what do you want to do?
I think I finished my presentation.
Okay.
No,
so
I don't even. Where did I leave off? I am having major computer problems.
A bunch of people passed away, and you took care of it. Is what I got out of your deal.
Done. That's it.
Okay, Christy, excellent presentation. Mr. Burdick, you're up.
All right.
Christy, this is Jim. I mean, I think the formal offer came for the position, but you missed it, and so we had to move on.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can keep going here, and I'll try to wrap it up fast unless you're really far into it, Birch.
No, you go ahead.
No, Christy,
Okay.
You finish up. And I think you stopped right at, gosh, let me try to think exactly where you stopped.
Talking about library services?
Yeah.
Statistics.
Yeah.
I've actually
regarding who
told
transports.
right to Terry that I need help with this surface, and he says not until after elections. So anyway, talking about library service, we spoke with a company in Fargo. Vital Call is the name. Dr. Baird wanted to give them a shot. They were coming in $20 for what FM Ambulance was going to charge, and they assured us that they would be on scenes in a timely manner. So far, it's worked out great, but I have to say that the majority of our calls that we have been trying to do everything that we can for Cass County coroner staff to do those removals, primarily because it's a time factor, it's a cost factor, but more so than anything, we just are so busy. We need to get those bodies from scenes back to our morgue to prepare for more calls that are coming because of our low number of staff and the volume of calls that we're getting. That said, we have a part-time investigator right now who is a 0.2, and we're hoping to move her up to a 0.5. I feel like I'm really behind on, are you guys keeping up with, am I talking in rhythm here?
Yep, you're doing great.
Oh, okay, because my camera is showing me about 10 seconds behind. But in order to do that, we have Natalie Basta right now at a 0.2, and we budgeted $36,000 for Dr. Baird's salary, or for a coroner. If I am in the coroner position, it's about a 5% increase, which still leaves quite a bit left over from what we budgeted for Dr. Baird in order to bump Natalie up to a 0.5 if possible. So that's something to put on the table for discussion. Supplies, a lot of the supplies that we're asking for is on back order. I was able to order several boxes of body bags today, which is a blessing because we're starting to get a little nervous with the that we have, but because of COVID, we've been having to go to the health department and get those supplies. So as far as the morgue and the office goes, we're in our position here for almost 5 years now. It's being utilized very well, and it is much appreciated by the funeral homes and everybody else who uses it. So far in 2020, we've had 195 bodies in our cooler for a total of 569 days. And in 2019, we had 176. So just to date, we're up about 25, 30 bodies from last year. And we do have
people talking percentages.
Yeah, when we're talking bodies, sometimes there's a big difference between 20 and there's a big difference between 50. So at any rate, we also have 2 vehicles right now. We've got the 2011 white Chevy van and the 2013 Ford Explorer. We've done quite a number of transports to and from Grand Forks, and I'll send out that sheet to Robert once I get this working, but it'll have all the breakdowns of the number of transports that we've done so far to Grand Forks. We continue to be quite heavily involved in the community. Granted, COVID's had a little bit of play in that, so we're trying to do more things by Zoom. We've recently put together a listserv, so to speak, of emails so that we could reach out to all of the coroners in North Dakota. We're finding that a lot of the coroners in the rural communities have very little training and very little support, so we're trying to come together to be able to provide that to them. Even though it isn't really our responsibility, we do feel that we have a lot of the communities, or county coroners reaching out to us, asking us questions on how to do things. So we're trying to make that a little bit easier for them. And we're still meeting with the hospitals quarterly, Essentia and Sanford. We've got access to Sanford medical records, which has made a huge improvement with doing our death investigation in terms of having records in a timely manner. And also still continue to be active on the elder abuse committees, the hoarding committees, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And I was recently asked to sit on the National Board of Directors for the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators. So we just had our annual meeting, and that's an honor for me at this point of my career to be able to do that. So that in a nutshell is what's happening at the coroner's office.
Christy,
Awesome.
quick question for you. I know you've been working on that listserv with other county coroners, and you and I and Birch had some conversations a month or so ago about potential legislative fix needs as far as transferring bodies across county lines at that point. Is there still a need there? Do you think we're you know, you're going to look to bring forward legislation? Where is that conversation at this point?
Yeah, I talked with Birch about this briefly last week. I think we are in crisis for death investigation in North Dakota on many fronts. We're going to be losing some medical examiners here, and the feedback that I'm getting from a lot of the counties is that they've got they basically appointed county sheriffs as coroners, and they don't want the work, they don't want the job title, they don't want the responsibility. Plus, they also have asked for training and are told that there isn't any training available. So I think we've got a little bit, while that's the front we're on, something as simple as saying, hey, let's talk about jurisdiction. I think when we're talking about other counties in North Dakota, they're decades behind where they need to be with the death investigation. One thing that I will say is it's something that I want to sit down and talk with the commissioners about, or maybe Chad, we can talk about it, but we are taking on a lot more of these calls with Sanford being a trauma level 1 care center. A lot of these bodies, or a lot of these people are being automatically flown to Fargo, and then they end up dying here, and it becomes our responsibility. And while we don't mind doing the investigation on it, it's really turning out to be a very costly service without any kind of refunding from Minnesota, so to speak. So one thing that I would like to propose, possibly going forward, maybe January 2021, is if the counties in Minnesota don't want to take the responsibility back and investigate it themselves, that we would potentially charge, so to speak, for body bag reimbursement, transport to Grand Forks, and removal fee, which the funeral homes would be doing anyway. And so I think that would potentially make a big difference on how and who wants responsibility for these death investigations.
Christy, a couple things. I think first, with your certification, for lack of a better term, for our coroners, maybe the lack of education, so they're 10 years behind. I believe that. I think maybe the Association of Counties, North Dakota Association of Counties, should maybe take that on, or at least assist you in whatever your next step may be. That way we have a hub, we have an easy communication route, everything's already established in terms of dissemination of information. So I think between myself and Commissioner Sherling, that might be the path there. And regarding Minnesota, that's going to be a bigger ask. Obviously, that's a legislative deal down in St. Paul. I don't know what the next step is, but I don't think it can hurt. This is just one person talking, like I always say. I don't think it can hurt to ask the question. I really don't think it can hurt to ask the question. So that's my thoughts on those.
Yeah. We do get, Birch and Robert and I have been talking with Ryan Melton over at Clay County Attorney, and the agreement with Clay County is that if they get cases that they want to investigate, that they will send us an email basically saying that they are requesting jurisdiction and that we are relieved from all responsibilities. And we're kind of finding that some of the counties in Minnesota are starting to do that because they have the same medical examiner that Clay County has. And so I think every county in Minnesota is going to be different. It's just a matter of working with those counties. But ultimately, our goal is that we want to make sure that all of these deaths are properly investigated. We've got a lot of very difficult cases, a lot of very complex cases, and it's going to take some work to do the investigation properly. And depending on what we can do with the North Dakota counties, you know, we're more than willing to work with them, and just a matter of, you know, whose responsibility it really falls on and is another question. So,
do they just take the easy ones, or do they want the criminal? What's
Minnesota?
Logic?
The Minnesota cases, Chad?
Yes.
You know, they do definitely want all of the criminal cases, and it seems like even some of the more difficult cases, if they're not criminal, they don't want them back, which gets it gets a little bit tricky in terms of what they want back and what they don't want back. We kind of have used the word cherry picking, but I think we've come to a good agreement that that we're going to work with them and basically do whatever they want to do. And if they say that they want jurisdiction, then we just completely turn it back and we just leave it with them. So it really falls back on them if it's not properly investigated.
Christy, it's Commissioner Pollock speaking. Do you have the ability to generate an invoice?
We have been. I've been working on the national board, a lot of jurisdictions, many jurisdictions across the U.S. as far as generating an invoice for cremation authorizations. We've been doing now for the last two or 3 years. We do invoice the FBI for body bags, which end up about $60 a bag. And some of the other jurisdictions, if we're going to be doing transport for them, we charge them as a funeral home would charge us for transportation fees.
So why would you not then be passing the charges along for transportation for body bags and maybe other supplies for out-of-county individuals?
Well, if I get named coroner, that's something that we are definitely going to be looking at doing.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Christy?
No, that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Burdick, you're up.
Thank you. Just as an aside, Christy asked when she came back on whether she was talking in rhythm. What I'm going to propose to Christy is the next time we have a rotational meeting, she do her presentation like a rap. And I'm going to be there with a video. Okay. So I mentioned earlier our caseloads are up about 8%. Staffing wise, today we hired in a new person to replace the current open spot in our office for an attorney. He's coming in with a little over 20 years of prosecutorial experience, so we're glad to have him. We stole him from the Attorney General's office. And then we've got an open position later on this year because one of my supervisors is running unchallenged for judgeship. So we'll try and fill that in December, and then we've got the new position that the commission has granted us for 2021, so we'll be filling that as well at the beginning of the year. The one minor problem, not quite sure what to do with it, maybe we can borrow some equipment to do it, is that if you're going to get a new computer, you don't get to get that new computer until 2021, and then Terry can set it up when he can set it up. So it's hard to bring somebody in on the first work day of January because you don't have equipment in hand, but we might be able to borrow something. The only other thing that currently comes to mind for me is that, and I've communicated this with Robert in the past just so he's aware of it, the judges here, of course, got re-engaged sort of in June and handling trials in July and thereafter. And 2 of the 9 judges are trying to do a number of their hearings, not trials, but hearings, remotely. And I think it's those same 2 judges that say to the extent that somebody can't do it remotely, and people are in their courtroom, they're going to have to wear masks in their courtroom in front of those judges. But the other 7 are not in bed with that. They're not requiring masks, and they're not doing hearings remotely. It brings a lot of people into the courthouse who may not be wearing masks. And our current policy, as I understand it, is that the sheriff is, I think they're probably encouraging people to wear masks, and the guys at the front gate, the men and women at the front door there for the sheriff are wearing masks. But if people don't wear masks, I think the assumption is that they are unable to wear masks. We don't make them. So we have a bunch of people walking in and around the courthouse to and from court who may not be wearing masks right now. I think Robert's going to address this more in general as far as policies and such at the commission meeting this afternoon. But that's just kind of a status from the courtroom. We are wearing masks more in the courtroom now than we were in days gone by. I went into court once and the judge asked me to take my mask off if I would be so kind because he said it's hard to hear you, meaning not just me, but anybody who's wearing a mask. I think that's partially true, which is a little problematic when you're doing a lot of speaking. But we'll just move our way forward as best we can and as safely as we can. And that's all I've got on my list of things to chat about.
So Commissioner Pollock, I have some questions.
Yeah.
And did you sit in on the sheriff's rotational meeting?
I did not.
Okay. Well, we're in a crisis mode at the jail right now. I mean, absolute, I would say absolute crisis mode, where they have more people than they can handle, and it really ties back to the COVID emergency. And he suggested that some of those people that don't need to be, that might be sentenced to something but don't need to be in jail, that your office is cooperating there. But I would like to know if you think there's more issues, you know, that you can do, because we're really concerned about an outbreak of COVID in the jail, and if that happens, you know, then it'll be a whole new program. And so I think we should do what we can to reduce the numbers going to the jail at this time. Is there anything more that you think your office can do?
Commissioner Pollock, there perhaps is. From time to time, we talk with Andy and crew about that. Back when COVID first hit, we, one way or another, found a way, but collectively, to get the jail population from about 300 down to about 150 or 60, which gave them breathing room. But it also meant that nobody was appearing in court and nothing was getting done. At some point, we had to re-engage the court because the cases were getting piled up. As it turns out, if you don't have people appearing in the courtroom, they don't do anything. They don't communicate with their defense attorneys. Their defense attorneys can't work out deals with us, and we can't come to a resolution of anything. So the jail is one tool for doing that. The court has had record amounts of bench warrants issued in the latter part of the summer, and I think in August and September. I don't know what that bench warrant thing looks like now, the bench warrant numbers, but it means, again, cases get backed up and they don't move forward. I think that I think in most direct answer to your question is, I'd be glad to meet with Andy at any time, and I will call him and see if there's something more that we can do. As a general rule, the court is not sentencing people who commit economic crimes, frankly, to much of any jail time. That's just largely not happening. And it's when you have other kinds of crimes, if there are public safety issues, you've got to make use of the jail. The sheriff has a certain amount of people that he's got out on community release, community supervision, and I don't know, he's probably maxed that out as best he can, but we'd certainly be glad to look for opportunities with the sheriff. I realize that's an issue for him, and we should try and help where we can.
Well, right now they have 348 people in the jail, and that really is about capacity.
It is.
And especially when they, you know, so people that they're supposed to hold isolated for a number of days, they need that space, so they're kicking them after 2 or 3 days, and when they should be holding them for 6 or 7 or 8. And so if you'd communicate with the sheriff, I mean, Andy's involved too, but the sheriff is going to be talking to the judges, and this is a crisis, and hopefully if we can deal with it on a lower level, we don't have to close the jail down, because that really is the alternative. If COVID runs through it, I mean, that's what's going to happen.
I haven't checked to see how quickly the people at the state pen are accepting inmates that the sheriff.
They've cut it off totally.
Oh. Well. Okay.
I mean, we're in a real jam, and so if you can communicate with the sheriff and then collectively with the judges, that would be helpful for this circumstance.
And perhaps we're not going to see the presiding judge here for another several weeks, I don't think, but we can perhaps get together with another couple of judges maybe and talk it through with the sheriff and maybe with a public defender as well, but at least with the sheriff and a couple of judges. They don't all speak with a uniform voice, though.
We know that, but thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for Mr. Burdick? All right, if that, I don't see anybody else on the call. Mr. Wilson, who am I missing?
Caitlin, was it me on this?
We do have Catlin on this call, more or less to make sure that we can broadcast as needed. I invite him to share anything that he would want. We don't typically have that other, but certainly would like to hear from him if we've got something. Typically, you do have IT on the call. I believe I've seen a couple of messages that Terry was not going to be on this call.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else want to speak? Catlin, here's your opportunity to yell at us. All right, rock and roll. Anyone else wish to speak? If not, see everybody at 3:30.
All right, goodbye.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.